almost Good evening. I'd like to call how about turn on my microphone first? There we go. All right. Good evening. I would like to call to order the Keizer City Council. It is a work session on Monday, April 11th, 2022, and ask our city recorder, please call roll.
Councilor Herrera.
Here.
Councilor Reed.
Here.
Councilor Kohler.
Here.
Mayor Clark.
Here.
Council President Smith.
Here. Hot mic.
I'm hot. I could just yell, Councilor Starr. Here. And Councilor Durant.
Here.
All right. Thank you very much. Happy to have you all here with us tonight. Tonight we are going to be talking about a proposal to use American Rescue Plan ARPA grant funds for turf sports fields. And I think this is how we're going to tackle this evening. We'll start off with an overview from our the staff report, the issues before us, and we've had a chance to read the packet, but just to go over it for people who are here who may not have it in front of them, that would be great. And then I would like to go from there to Commissioner Willis and representatives from the County Commissioner's Office, because this is a potential partnership. Hear from them on what this would look like. And then who's here from Mid-Valley Soccer? All right. Are you willing to speak for the group, or at least talk about this proposal from the club's point of view?
I can try my best. Like, as far as it goes to numbers, I'm not.
That's okay, just concept.
But yeah,
Perfect. All right, so I'll go to you after that, and then we'll have some discussion, then open it up for Q&A from folks who have signed up. How's that sound to folks? Good to go?
We also
Councilor.
have representatives of the school district here.
Oh, perfect. I will go to them as well.
Okay.
Fabulous. So let's start off with the staff report, city manager and team.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Our Public Works Director, Bill Lawyer, is prepared to talk to the memo that he prepared last week and that he presented to the City Council.
Thank you, Wes. Madam Mayor, Council, as was discussed, the issue we're discussing tonight is the grant request for turf sports fields. Kind of staff report goes over the proposal for currently two all-weather turf soccer or /football fields at Keizer Rapids Park. Estimated cost of about $4.2 million for both fields. That includes the funding would at this point includes a grant from Marion County in the amount of $2 million with a request for the city to match that $2 million. Goes over a couple funding options, or a few funding options that could be considered. The use of park systems development charges, which based on the estimate would be eligible for $544,000 to pay for this project. Potential funding could also be Oregon State Parks Local Government Grant Program. Of course, any grants are contingent upon being approved. There's the city's ARPA funds, of which $7.4 million have been unallocated at this point. There's also potential for private donation sponsorships that could be done in a matter of time and services and materials, cash contributions. Of course, those would have to be sought out, researched, and achieved. In addition to that, staff listed some additional considerations that we feel need to be discussed. And I'll just go over the highlights or the bullet points of what we established or what we thought were things to consider. The location. Is Keizer Rapids the best location? Other sites could be other city property, by Volcano Stadium, possibly Whitaker Middle School, where the Mid-Valley currently holds their games and practices, possibly county-owned property, and for all I know, there might be a piece of private property that could be considered. Management of the facility needs to be discussed. How's that going to be accomplished? Hours of use, current park regulations. All of our parks close at dusk. Field lighting. Do we want the fields to be lighted? And how do we address the increased use and potential impact on neighborhoods from that use? Reservation policies. Is it going to be a reservation only? Or is it going to be open for public use at all times? Parking needs. Not knowing the full capacity of a turf soccer field, could they be split into 2 fields each, or 4 games at a time, or 4 fields each, 8 games at a time? We believe that directly affects parking needs. Use fees, how are we gonna set the use fees? Maintenance and repairs, how are those gonna be revenue generated to cover the ongoing maintenance and repairs and ultimate replacement of the turf? Are there additional amenities that are needed to support the facility? Restrooms, water fountains, storage buildings, things like that. And then conflicting uses. A city-sponsored concert event at the same time as soccer games. Are those concerns? How do we address those? And there may be other things out there that we didn't think about. This is just a list that we came up with that we thought needed to be discussed. And from there, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. And thank you, first of all, this is very comprehensive. And second of all, we're not solving all these tonight. Unless if one of you came with all of this figured out, fantastic. But this is a starting point for all of the things we need to think through in this process. And what we would like to hear tonight, as we consider what this could look like for Keizer Rapids Park or other options. So just want to kind of lay that out there. But thank you. Questions on the staff report? Council President Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Where did we get the number of 4.2 million, just for the record, so everybody knows?
That number was provided, I believe, through Marion County and their original estimates, and staff has reviewed that and talked with our engineering firm, who have been involved in building. In fact, they're currently involved with a project at Canby High School, and they felt that was an adequate number. One of the big variables is parking. That's could drive the cost up depending on how much parking is absolutely required for it.
Exactly. So thank you for bringing up the potential for multiple uses or events going on at the park. And that's something we already see in the summer anyway, with the heavy use of and increasing use of Keizer Rapids Park. So something we have to consider as well, that scheduling would have to be collaborative if we're going to schedule games. Of course, ad hoc games or pickup games like we see in other spaces, it's first come, first served. Okay, any other questions at this point? All right, I'd like to invite up Colum and anyone else you'd like to bring with you to talk to us about this project. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, Commissioner.
Oh, great. Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council President Smith and City Councilors. It's fun for me to be on this side of the dais. I kind of like that. I'd like to just kind of give you a little bit of background for this idea, kind of where it came from, why the county came to the city and asked if you guys would be interested in this project. I think it was my first year as a county commissioner. So 4 years ago, one of my first meetings was with Marion County 4-H. Which the county commissioners are the board of directors for the 4-H program here in Marion County, and it's a partnership with Oregon State University. And in that first meeting, one of the things they told us was that a number of the kids who participate in 4-H in Marion County are actually the children of farm workers, people who work on the farms. And one of the great things about 4-H is they don't tell the kids what activities they have to participate in. They sort of find out what do the kids want, and they tailor the activities to the kids. And turns out one of the most popular things that the kids wanted to do was play soccer. And so at the time, they had hundreds of kids enrolled in a soccer program through 4-H. But one of the things about how we do soccer in America is we kind of have two different systems of soccer. We have recreational soccer, just sort of, you and your friends get together and play. And then we have what's considered competitive soccer, where you have tryouts and that sort of thing. Well, for a lot of the kids that were playing in 4-H, they started when they were 4 or 5 playing soccer together, and they basically had moved up as a team, and they'd gotten to a place where they wanted to compete, at the highest level they could, but because it was recreational soccer, they couldn't do that. So one of the things that was kind of cool is the 4-H coordinator, he happened to previously play soccer, and so he got his competitive license. I guess you have to have a license in Oregon or OYSA to allow the teams to keep progressing as teams and to play competitive soccer at a pretty low cost. One of the things that was so cool about this was a lot of these kids their families didn't have a lot of money. And so they were able to play competitive soccer where if you play for some of the teams in Portland, it can be $1,000 a year or $2,000 a year. They were able to play for, I think, like $100 all in or $150. So it was really popular. And my perspective was this was like a really healthy thing for these kids. Well, things being the way they are, Oregon State decided to not move forward with that program, which was, again, it was one of these strange experiences for me as a commissioner to have a meeting where Oregon State said, this is a great program. We have something like 600 or 700 kids participating. It's 80% Latino. It's mostly low-income kids. This is like a wonderful thing, and they've played together as teams their whole lives. And then literally like a month or two later, they said, we're killing this program, and we're not going to do it anymore. And I was really concerned about that. And so I reached out to some of the families of the kids and said, is this important to you? And they were like, yeah, this is really important to us. And they were really concerned about it. So I asked some of them to come to the board's office and sort of tell their story, but we didn't really have a lot of options. So one of the things that we did was we just said, is there anybody in the area that would be willing to take the program as is? Because there was sort of a hard cutoff. And to their credit, what was then Keizer Soccer Club said, yeah, we'd be willing to take these kids and help the program continue. And then COVID hit. And, so a lot of the sports shut down. And then one of the things that was additionally problematic was a lot of the way that they would play is they would go purchase time on different fields that the school district owned around the area. And when COVID happened, those fields weren't available anymore. And so they really weren't able to kind of play much anymore for almost 2 years, year and a half. And it kind of became a problem. And so as we were thinking about what to do with our ARPA money, one of the things that came up was the ability for kids to have a place to play and for this type of program to continue where your ability to play sport isn't dependent on how much money your parents make, but it's just sort of your ability to run and jump and play with your friends. So that's sort of the background of why I got involved in this and why I think it's a good thing. What happened is when we were going through our ARPA process, I reached out to the city and we actually had a meeting. I don't think Mr. Lawyer was at that meeting, but I met with various jurisdictions around the county, and Keizer actually talked about Keizer Rapids Park. And they talked about how, and I forget who it was at the time, which city staff members did, but they talked about how this was a park that had been planned to have fields for a while, and this potentially could be a good place for us to invest money to build these kind of fields. Another thing to add is the reason why turf is important is because we have really rainy winters. And so basically our fields turn into big mud puddles. So a lot of green spaces, a lot of fields that are available, they don't let the kids play in the winter because they don't want to destroy the fields. So that's part of the reason why we invest in turf fields in Oregon. That's why they're so popular. So that's sort of how we got onto this direction towards Keizer Rapids Park. And so the next thing I did was I went and met with the West Keizer Neighborhood Association to just talk to them about concerns about people playing soccer on these fields, how late, they would want people playing or not playing, all those sorts of things. And they asked some hard questions, but one of the things that came back was they were excited about kids being able to use this facility, and they thought that the community and the city could arrange it so that it wouldn't interfere with the people who live there. So that's my understanding, and my hope is that those considerations can be taken going forward as we pursue this project. So I would hope you support it, and thank you for your time, and thank you for your service. I also know that this can be a thankless job, and folks can, criticize you unfairly and not always thank you when you do good things. So I want to thank you for your service and for your time tonight.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Commissioner Willis? Counselor Starr has a question for you, and then if Commissioner Bethel would like to join you or wants to speak separately, that'd be fine too.
It is fun being on this side for once.
I bet it is.
Just to clarify, I have seen like the attachment we have on the dollar figures or the year-round costs, and I've seen it mentioned a couple times. This isn't just soccer or football. Could it be used for almost like year-round sports? So almost building it like a multi-purpose turf field. Is that an accurate?
Yes, the turf fields that I've seen used in this way, the ones that I know of, can do lacrosse, soccer, football. Baseball or softball can be kind of hard because you have the mound and the bases and everything, so that's not really a good fit. But certainly lacrosse, football, and soccer are super compatible on these fields. And field hockey too. We don't do a lot of field hockey here, but if we did, we could do that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Other questions for Commissioner Willis? Did you want, Councilor Herrera?
First of all, thank you, Commissioner, for being here.
Microphone.
First of all, thank you, Commissioner, for being here, and thank you for showing interest in something I really care about, youth sports in general and soccer in particular. The first question is, was it a budget situation with OSU pulling out of the partnership you had?
It was a super strange situation. To this day, I couldn't tell you why. It was, like I said, it was one of the strangest. OSU was restructuring a lot, their whole 4-H system statewide at the time, and they now have a new director of 4-H programs, so that it could have been part of that, but it was very strange. It was one meeting, 1 month, this is the greatest thing ever. 1 month later, we're ending this program. It was
Did
strange.
it have anything to do with the soccer and the connection with 4-H? If it's, because I know that the kids chose to be, soccer and.
Yeah, I could, like I said, I couldn't tell you. It was a decision made by Oregon State University. We just sort of picked up the pieces.
To me, if you're building a field, it has to be turf here.
Yeah.
I mean, and it is multi-purpose, and you're right, it can be used for many things. You can have, activities that are other than sports.
Mm-hmm.
But I appreciate you being here and pushing the cause. Appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I'm really excited about this. My son played soccer, Keizer Soccer Club, former board member, Keizer Soccer Club. So way to go, Keizer shows up once again. I'm very happy to hear that our local club showed up for these kids so they can keep playing. So thank you for sharing that good news about our community. I'd like to invite up Commissioner Bethel to speak to this as well. Thank you so much. It was good to see you.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. So for the record, I'm Commissioner Danielle Bethel and a Keizer resident. And I just have a couple of things I want to add to what Commissioner Willis said for the history of soccer in the community and why it's important to me for these soccer fields to go forward. And one is because it's not just about soccer. I have personally facilitated and fundraised for 2 turf fields in our community to support kids, the McNary turf field and then the McKay turf field. And when we were seeking to do McNary on the 3rd try and successful effort to put in that turf, it was a huge effort. It cost a lot of money. And the reason we needed to do it is because we took a field that had approximately 180 uses a year, if that, based on weather, to 1,800 or more uses a year for our kids. Well, through COVID, what I have seen is restrictions on just about every single thing possible, and our kids were the first to be restricted. The school district shut down their property, and kids couldn't access the playgrounds, they couldn't access the turf, they couldn't access anything. It wasn't just about classrooms, it was about activity and participation. The city also had some restrictions, but they were much shorter in time frame, and we allowed people to get back into the community as soon as possible and access the parks and have some fresh air. But addition to the challenges that we have for access, the school district is constantly restricted by space. Right now at South Salem High School, there is a challenge being faced by local organizations for Little League. If you want to know about it, call TJ Sullivan. He'll tell you all about it. And it's not because the school district isn't trying to be accommodating. They are, but they have a job to do. Their job is to provide education, and then through taxpayer-funded activities and resources to try to provide as much access to those as possible. But our community is growing, and we do not have enough resources available to support our growth in the community. So these two fields are going to be a significant regional impact to our community. I asked for forgiveness instead of permission for the McNary field. I did happen to see the athletic director in the back of the room, but he thankfully was not the guy that had the job at the time, and Ron Richards wasn't too mad at me when we put lacrosse lines down. We did that because we have a significant number of kids in this community in Marion County that play lacrosse. And you know where they go? McNary. They fight for access to that field, oftentimes, and Scott can speak better to this than I can, but late hours of the night because they have to compete with baseball, who has a grass seeded field that they don't want their kids on to ruin during practice or preseason, so they put them on the turf. So lacrosse kids are starting their practices at 7, 8 o'clock at night and go until the late dark. Having access to lacrosse lines on 2 fields at Keizer Rapids Park offers more kids more access during the day and families to come out and to be in our community to provide healthy opportunities. In addition to that, Marion County tries to invest its dollars in generational impact. And that's what we're doing with our ARPA dollars here, in my opinion. We're taking $2 million of a $68 million bucket and providing it into activities that are going to impact families in our community for generations. And it's going to invite people into this community that wouldn't otherwise come. As a commissioner, it's difficult to say, I need you to do these particular things with these dollars when we give them out. But that's the reality. That we don't have all the money in the world to do all of the things. And I can't give $2 million to any other community in Marion County for these projects because they don't have the available land. They don't have a master plan, a parks plan that calls for this, and you do. And you're the community that I know best that can get this done because I've seen you do it. I also know that there's people that tell you there's other financial resources available to help with the match. But more importantly, there's people in this community willing to stand up and give their time and resources and skill sets to get it done. And I know that the city has hurdles ahead of them to overcome, but you're not alone in doing that. Aside from the fact that I've said multiple times to all of you, I'm available and want to participate in this, there are many other community members that want to participate and give of their time and talents to see this happen. And that includes what comes next. How will this be managed? Keizer is growing. We have to face that reality. This city and all the cities around us in Marion County are growing. And whether that creates a burden or an opportunity is just how you want to see it. I see this as an opportunity for growth in this community, in this city, in this program. And I really do hope that you'll support it and see it to fruition. And the dollar amount that came from the work packet today and then from our staff at the county before provides a dollar that's higher than actual costs. I reached out to some vendors to say, what would it cost? And the cost is in fact lower. So there's dollars to go further for some of the concerns that the staff addressed in the work session packet today, such as lights and bleachers and so on and so forth. If we can get to 4 million, there's opportunity to provide a better solid plan for these 2 turf fields at Keizer Rapids Park. And of course, you can always turn the lights a certain direction, so that way they don't shine in the lights of homes. And if we need to see proof of that, go to McNary. Because there's a neighborhood on either side of that I have not heard complaints from as a school board member or a citizen of this community with their lights that are on into wee hours of the night. So anyway, thanks for your time. And again, like Commissioner Willis said, thanks for your service, because it's hard to be on that side of the table. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Really appreciate you being here tonight and for championing this for our youth and families. Go down this side. Questions? Councilor Starr.
So one question, and you touched on it briefly, and I'm still learning, but my question is if you can educate me on where I can find data, or if you have anecdotal data about what the positive economic impact would be for Keizer and our city if we were to do this.
Well, I don't work at the chamber anymore, but I bet they could lean in and help you for that. They do the economic development for the region, and it's been some time since I've really sat down and looked at anything locally. But when we talk about programs, we could just specifically talk about the youth programs that are over at Whitaker right now. They're all confined pretty much to Keizer Station. But on any given Saturday, from 7 a.m. until about 5 p.m. in the afternoon, you pretty much can't get past Whitaker during a soccer season because it's gridlocked. And those parents go to the place that they can see best to feed their kids. Right now, that's Burger King, Subway, whatever over there. So we're seeing an influx, and we could ask Corey to do some data research on that for Keizer Station, specifically to soccer season. And then we could expand that. We have an economic development team too that could probably pull some data if we want. Hopefully Matt's here. Matt's in the background, he'll help me get that. And we can look at other parks. Down in Southern Oregon, there's a beautiful baseball park that's an economic development investment, and they've done some miracle things down there to bring and draw people in for lodging, food, activities. So I don't have it obviously off the top of my head, but I can get it for you. And one thing I should have noted that I talked to Kathy about on Thursday, I called her on the phone on the way home. Our team at the county with our $2 million wants to offer up a partnership. The ARPA funding is difficult at best, potentially for tracking. And if the city feels any concern whatsoever about managing that tracking of that $2 million, our finance team can partner with your finance team to work together on, if we don't want to just write you a check for it because that's too much to deal with that tracking, we can work the project hand in hand to make sure that we're doing our reporting and absorbing that burden ourselves for our $2 million to relieve some of that burden, if you will, on the staff here. But that would be up to Tim and his team and what they want to see out of that.
Thank you, appreciate that. Questions? Councilor Reed?
No, actually, I was pointing to Elizabeth because she had her hand
Oh,
up.
you do, okay, I'm seeing,
I
you know.
poke her sometimes.
There we go. I was like,
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Commissioner Bethel, for coming and having multiple conversations about this. In some of the conversations you and I have had, you have mentioned multiple names of people who've already kind of stepped up and said that they want to be a part of this. Could you kind of recap that a little bit? Because I thought that was a really cool thing. It's kind of how things in Keizer have gotten done. I'm looking at the back row of individuals back there that I know have participated greatly in the Keizer Rapids Park and other development stuff. So if you could just recap kind of the feedback you're getting from the community and the people that have helped before that might be interested in this project.
Well, I don't want to call them all out individually, but what I can tell you that Keizer is really good at is volunteering people that they want to help, and then they say yes, because that's what we do here. And looking at the 4 people in the back of the room, they're all really good with shovels. I've seen them. So, I mean, I don't know that they support this, but if they did, I imagine that they would show up in some way. But I can tell you from the people that participated at McNary, so there was, on the 2 projects that I worked on for turf fields were for 2 very different communities. In Keizer, Bob Zielinski, Rich Duncan, and numerous other big names showed up to help us there. I have no doubt that if we made a call that those same names would show up. And Bob, while he's probably not watching, is eager for a project to spend his time on. So I know that he would be willing to participate. But the difference between the McNary project and the McKay project was really about the community that surrounded it. We didn't have a ton of students show up at McNary to do the dirt turning and the shovels of all the gravel and so forth. But we did have a lot of adults and a lot of businesses put their name behind it. And in fact, for McNary, we didn't actually have to raise the whole $1 million for that turf project because we had so much in-kind donation come in. And I would expect a portion of that to occur here again in Keizer because that's just what we do. People like to show up. And at McKay, we had a lot of kids for enthusiasm. And I've personally talked to the soccer participants at the programs that exist in Keizer already. Miguel Camarena and I are frequently texting back and forth, and I can't tell you the excitement and desire, the eagerness that they have to engage in this project. There will not be a shortage of people to help. And if we have to come up with dollars because maybe the city has allocations of their ARPA or other dollars elsewhere and we have some money that we need to raise, we can do that. Like, I have no doubt whatsoever that we can get this done in Keizer.
thank you very much. Councilor Kohler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Commissioner Bethel, it's good to see your smiling face.
It's nice to see you guys too. I'm happy to be here. Sorry I was late.
So have you had any discussions with the professional football, ladies football team?
No. I laugh because I don't have time to go and earn new relationships with sports teams. But if they were available, I would love to talk to them about it.
I thought you knew everything.
I do not. I never claimed that.
I've talked to them about 3 times, and they're very interested in having that be their home.
That's great. Again, there's a lot of opportunity on that turf field, and I think that we can stretch a dollar here really far. And if you hear of groups like that that have a following and we need to figure out how to make the park even more accommodating, I think we can do that all in the same time, and or create phases of the project to grow, to really make the best benefit for the community as it needs, through the feedback that the council likely will receive based on your decision.
Follow up? Okay.
Just another little question. There've been some people that have said that we should consider building those fields in a different location. What would be your opinion of that?
I mean, I've heard that, but I think my opinion doesn't necessarily matter because I don't live near the field. I understand that there's probably some concern from the neighbors nearby, but I think it's no different than living next to the Little League Park or the baseball stadium. That park was there and it was earmarked and there was a master plan when those homes were built. The plan was there before those homes were built. But I would say that Keizer is a really good neighbor and we're really accommodating. I've never been to an activity, even the Keizer Iris Festival, which I was a part of for 18 years, participated in discussions in the community around the noise. And we always pivoted to do our very best to be a community neighbor and a community partner. Is everybody happy all the time? That's impossible. But can we make concessions and compromises to make sure that we're doing something that's right by our community and the neighbors in it? Absolutely. And I would encourage the city council to have those discussions. I know that there's concerns around the lights and the length of activities that could go into however long with lights. But it would be great to get kids home before 9 p.m. on a regular night for activities. And right now we're not doing that with our available resources because we're competing for lack of location. The Keizer Rapids Park concert series ends at a certain time to accommodate those neighbors. I don't know why we couldn't put those concessions in place for this particular park. Again, I think it's all open for discussion and opportunity to partner. And I would hope that the people who are potentially not wanting it to exist at Keizer Rapids Park are being open-minded about the entire community and the opportunity and come to the table with solutions that they can live with, and hold the county and the community, or excuse me, the city and the community accountable to those guidelines and policies that are going to come. It's not a free-for-all, so I don't see it as such. And if there's another location in the community that is a viable option that the city believes should be presented, then let's have that discussion. But I hope it can be a discussion and a dialogue going forward and not just shut it down because one option that's being presented doesn't work for all.
Well, thank you very much for having an interest in our community, a continued interest in our community.
You're welcome.
I think we would be crazy not to take advantage of this great opportunity.
So did you want to piggyback on that before we go to Councilor Reed?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilor Kohler, I spoke to some of the neighbors at the beginning of this process about some of these concerns. And at first they were a little bit concerned. And then once they saw how far the fields were from their homes, and once they discussed when the playing would stop happening at night, they got a lot more comfortable with the idea. And the real need in the evenings is during the winter time when the sun goes down early. So there's not really a need to play soccer much past 9 o'clock or these other sports. It really is, when the sun goes down at 4, being able to play from 4 to 7 basically is important. So.
You don't have to run off.
No.
I sit next to you every day, so
All right, I'm going to go to Councilor Reed and then Councilor Rivera.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not sure that you guys are going to be the best ones to answer this question, but what I'm interested in is comparable facilities and how they're managed. And I know I had this conversation with Scott Gregg as far as, because he's been around. And so are we looking at hiring a management organization? What are some of the different models that might be used in terms of the management and most particularly the scheduling and how that works? Would that be a city responsibility? Could we hire out for a management team? What have you seen in comparable facilities that work?
So I guess what I would say is most of these facilities charge a fee for use. and that fee is then used to help pay for the management of it. But I do think there's a pretty significant difference between taking care of turf and taking care of grass. So like most of the time when we think of fields, we're thinking of somebody out there mowing and doing the lines, and there's like a lot of work, I think, like on-field work on a day-to-day basis. I think when it comes to management of this, it's really more of a scheduling job, especially if you have multiple organizations or people trying to reserve it. So whether it was done in-house or whether you contract with somebody, I think that would mainly be the work, is making sure that you don't have vandalism or people causing trouble or doing things they shouldn't be doing out there, and then making sure you don't have scheduling conflicts, because the turf is turf. So it shouldn't get torn up, it shouldn't get broken unless somebody's doing something they're not supposed to be doing on it.
Okay.
And just to add to what Commissioner Willis said, there's lots of options, right? The city of Salem has a Parks and Recs department that deals with all of their parks, and I know that that's not a direction that the city right now wants to approach. So I think finding a consultant or a management company to oversee it is a doable option. I am all too familiar with the challenges that the Little League field has experienced over the years by just giving it to a local organization and then expecting them to, without bias, approach other organizations to share. We all have territory issues, and we want to kind of keep the territory close to the cuff, so that way we have access to it first. I would hope that, just as a suggestion, if the city council decides to move forward with this and allocate dollars and approve this project, you'd put together a task force, if you will, to tackle these things. The Parks Foundation is a great place for it to start, with some community partners to show up and really take this on and to do that research and find a Keizer forward model that really works best for this community. And it might be a model that we create that works best for our community and the people we're trying to serve, because Marion County is very unique. It's not like any other county in the state of Oregon. I can tell you that because for the last year and a half, we have been outpacing every other county in the state in the way we do things in Marion County. And when I was campaigning, I said, I'm going to Keizer Marion County. And I think we're doing that, especially with a project like this, because we come up with our own creative solutions to do things around here. And I do know that there are solutions out there. And I know that there are solutions that support the challenges that the staff have presented as far as burden and reluctance, in addition to the challenges that we've heard from the community. Because I've heard them too. I mean, we talked about this publicly, and different people reached out to me and said, I don't want it, or I do, for their particular reasons. And a lot of it are emotional-based reasons, because of kind of the trauma that we've gone through the last few years with Little League and trying to avoid that happening again. There is a model. I just don't know what it is right now. But I'd be willing to show up to work on it.
Thank you.
Councilor Herrera?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilor Reed, still one of my concerns was the city responsibility in the future. There's a couple of things. Also, did you communicate anything, just out of curiosity, with Capital FC on what
CFC?
What your relationship would be?
I was at their ribbon cutting for their new fields the other day. I've spoken with Colin and Benji, not particularly about this, but just about my support for soccer as a region. We have thousands of kids playing soccer. This is a sport that kids really get into. I think I have heard some concerns expressed about different things, but nothing that I think would relate specifically to this field project. I mean, my perspective is basically, a rising tide lifts all boats. It's kind of, my view to soccer is like the Got Milk campaign. We shouldn't be trying to make our dairy win. We should make everybody buy more milk. That's kind of the way I feel about soccer. If everybody plays soccer, then everyone's going to win.
Commissioner, would it be fair to say they support your effort to get a...
I wouldn't know if they support this particular effort. I haven't asked that, but I would say it is fair to say that they support my love for soccer in the region.
Oh, yeah. That's a no-brainer. The other thing I was talking about, I don't know if there was too many, I think I talked to Bill about it, like on a full schedule day, what would the traffic, we only have one way in there. Was there any discussion with it, West Keizer Neighborhood Association, as far as, I know the light stuff came up, but the traffic, just Chimawa is the only way to get in there.
Yeah,
Unless you have a boat.
I mean, we talked a little bit about kind of how folks would get into the park, ingress and egress, and we talked a little bit about parking. I think the context matters. So if you have 2 fields there, you have 2 fields. I think we've all experienced going to places where they have like 10 fields or 12 fields. That's not the same thing, right? So there are 22 kids that can play on a field at a time if it's a full-size game, and their families. So I mean, you're talking somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 100 people that are there at this level of soccer total. So it's not insignificant, but we're not talking about hundreds of people or thousands.
That's just
not
soccer, not the big toy or the dog. So,
right.
And
But
believe me,
right.
Commissioner,
Yeah.
I'm a big sports, youth
Yeah.
sports guy. You don't have to worry about that. But I was just curious to some of the questions that are being asked towards me. And one of the questions I got.
Before you move on, Counselor, can I just address that a little? Because Keizer Rapids Park has the summer concert series, which sees more than 100 people at a time for those activities while the big toy is happening, and the dog park, and the joggers, and the fisher people, and the boat people.
I'm aware of that.
Yeah, so my point is that there's just a large influx throughout the summer months, and this isn't a larger influx, it's the same influx, if you will, just spread out throughout the year, and it creates more of a demand on the park. But improving parking and access will, I think, improve the whole environment over there, especially for people coming in and out. I mean, I was at a concert before COVID out there where I had to park in the neighborhood and walk through, and thankfully my friend lives nearby, so she wasn't mad that I parked in front of her house to walk through. I think it's 15th over there. We could eliminate some of that neighborhood off-park parking by improving the space with these fields and the parking site available on site.
Have you figured out the number in terms of parking, how many cars can get in there? Because, like you said about the impact of the neighborhood streets, they don't want to see cars parked in there, but I was just curious.
No, we haven't. That'd be a part of the process. And I think it's, the county's not invested like engineering or anything into this because it's an offer to do a partnership opportunity that we would explore the most access possible. And I think sky's the limit.
I thank you for your time, both of you commissioners, but like I said, this is something that I'm kind of excited about, but I want to make sure that I answer all the questions that have been asked to me. And they asked me because they know that I would it's a no-brainer for me. I would really support something like that. But I really think that I have a responsibility to answer those. And there was questions about the relationship between CFC and you guys, and I didn't want to get into that. I just wanted to ask the questions in terms of moving forward on this project. I see a lot of good things happening, and I see the opportunity of $2 million. Boy, I'd hate to see that go by in terms of the opportunity for our kids, And you're right, Danielle, Commissioner Bethel's right about the future. That's what I worry about quite a bit, so.
Well, and I think something that I just want to add, and I've said this to the mayor, is we really are intentional about being good partners here. So we're not trying to do anything to Keizer. We're trying to help Keizer. And so I want to just make sure that's really clear that Marion County is trying to be here as a partner and a help. And so we're definitely going into this wanting the parking to be adequate and the experience to be good for the neighbors, for the kids, for everybody involved. I just want to make sure that's clearly communicated.
I thank you for your efforts, both of you.
On the CFC thing, while I haven't talked to Colin about it, I think it could be stated clearly that SCEF used to be around and provided access to activities for kids after school. Sports access was one of them, and they was dissolved recently, and those kids had to go somewhere, if anywhere, available. So there's a lot of opportunity for kids to access this park if it stands up and for Mid-Valley Soccer Club or any other soccer club to participate. And I would think that our community partners and the programs that we have that work together pretty well, in my opinion, today, would be able to find an opportunity to utilize the park to their best ability. So my daughter used to play for Keizer Soccer Club, and then she went over to CFC. And she went to CFC to do competition, but it was over on State Street. I would have loved for her team, which was a Keizer-based team, to have a place to practice here in town. And that didn't exist because we were constantly competing with Keizer Soccer Club, who didn't want us there because we were their competitor. Again, kind of another emotional trade. I believe that trade has settled some in the recent years because the organization leaders of both the programs that really have the fundamental base of soccer have done such a great job of working together and being good stewards of access to kids. we have lots of kids. And this is really just about giving them and their families a healthy environment and an activity that they can participate in our community, and then this community benefit from it as well in the long term. So I appreciate your questions, Roland. I think they're very important. And I wish I could answer your traffic light road question, but we'll get there.
But there's a will.
That's right.
I think the scheduling also is going to help with that. So if this is managed right and you have someone scheduling these activities, that'll help with that as well.
And we talked about the charging I'm looking at like our new neighborhood program in Kennedy. I'm thinking about what we got. I mean, will other folks have access and not really spendy?
Yeah,
So,
well, and that's going to be the trick, is finding out how much do you charge people so that you still have access, but that you can manage it appropriately and have the money to sustain it. And that's the work that we would have to do if you decide to go forward with
Thank you
this.
very much.
Well, and before I go to Councilor Starr, I would point out that we did a full urban upgrade on Shimawa, so we not only have vehicle traffic, but we also have complete bicycle and pedestrian access. So if it's local, kids can choose and families can choose to walk or bike down there to the park, which is only a plus. The only thing is, with after the game, the younger brothers and sisters are going to still be playing on the big toy, and they're not going to want to leave. So we do have to factor in some of that for parking, but that's when they have to ride their bikes. So just wanted to kind of throw that out there. And then one more thing was on the expanded hours and having people down there. One of the problems we've been having is vandalism. And when we reopened when we redid the skate park, a lot of the activities that were not desirable vanished because there were so many people using it. And I'm hoping that the same thing would happen with expanded use at Keizer Rapids Park. When you bring families down there, people who want to do things unseen tend to go elsewhere, or maybe just stop it altogether, she says optimistically. I'm going to go to Councilor Starr.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As I'm learning with all things ARPA funding, there's different dates for different projects and funds and revenue, all of that. So my question is, I know that the county is asking for a commitment from us soon. What are the, I guess the allocation date versus the completion date? Help me with that, because that.
There's two timelines.
Okay.
There's two timelines. So the money needs to be allocated by 2024. Like with project details, this is what we're doing. And we need to be able to report to the feds, if you will, through the process that this money has been earmarked for these particular projects, and they meet these particular needs within the guidelines of the programs. And the project has to be completed by December of 26.
Okay.
So we have, in my opinion, from my experience of doing turf fields, we've got lots and lots of time, plenty of time. We could spend 6 months planning this and talking to all the neighbors in Keizer, and then still have time to build the project. It doesn't take a year to do a turf project. Now, depending on all the elements that go into it, it might take us 18 months to get up and running, especially if you choose a phased approach. But we have time. And I know not everybody agrees with me on that, because there's, like, our finance department is like, we don't have any time, but we do. We've got lots of time.
I'm looking at Mr. Wood to see if which side of
Yeah,
that he
he's
could
like,
down
I'm
on.
one guy. She's right. I'm right. We have time, and I'll help him.
I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead, Councilor Starr, do you have any follow-up?
Nope, that was it. Thank you.
All right.
Councilor Starr, if I may, Commissioner Bethel also mentioned this earlier, but our finance team is willing to help with managing this. I would say they're very conscious of the law and making sure we stay very, very, very inside the law. So they are not cavalier about it at all, and they're keeping us on the straight and narrow.
Singing your song, Mr. Wood.
Most definitely.
That's how you do it. Are there any other questions for the commissioners at this point? I'd like to hear from the Mid-Valley Soccer Club and then from McNary Athletics. So
Thank you.
thank you so much. Stick around. We may have additional questions. Mid-Valley Soccer. Yes, come on down. Thank you for being here. Pardon?
hope I can answer any questions.
Yeah, who's that? Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Yeah, no problem.
So, and if you, just your name?
My name is
and-
Eric Branch, and I'm a resident of Keizer.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about, for the people who don't know, about Mid-Valley Soccer Club, which used to be Keizer Soccer Club, and what the interest is, or have you had conversations about this field project?
I've heard rumors about this coming to Keizer for quite some time. Growing up in Keizer and playing Keizer soccer, it was never really a competitive option. It was more of a rec soccer type of thing. And until recently, I think once 4-H joined Mid-Valley Soccer is when really it became an option to where we could play competitive soccer. And like I've said before, the talent that we have here is really good. We've played tournaments. We've done really well. We won tournaments all over at all age groups. And the turf option is just super important for the access. I mean, I've had practices canceled because of weather, and I've had to drive to Silverton and use a church gym. You know, just you try to do whatever you can to make it work. And so having a turf option, and practices alone, I mean, practices go late with lights, but I think with more access besides McNary, it wouldn't be as late. And so that's the thing that when I heard them speaking. Weekends also, anytime I've ever played growing up soccer, you know, weekend games are usually early in the day. They're never late. And so I think games would end by midday if we did have like any type of game schedule for the weekends at Keizer Rapids Park. I don't think it would be a late type of thing. I think practices maybe during the week was when it would be a later option. But yeah, I've seen Keizer soccer grow over the years from when I've played as a kid till I became coaching my own kids who play there. I coached actually my son's team through 4-H. We took 4-H and we wanted to try to play competitive, and we used 4-H, and it was great because it kept costs available for families who just couldn't afford it. And the talent, like I said, is amazing. We have a lot of talented athletes here in Keizer for all sports. And just from me being a soccer dad and growing up playing soccer, I've seen it. And so I think our coaches, our staff at Mid-Valley Soccer is growing. We have a lot more interest in people seeing it grow and the talent that we have. And so I think more people are stepping up. It's all voluntary based. And I was out there this last weekend and just watching everybody set up the fields. You know, they're very passionate about it. And I think that this is just another step in the direction to grow the program. So.
Well, thank you so much. About how many kids do you have in your program at this point?
Oh
do you
man,
know?
that's I have no idea. See, I'm a coach. I show up and I volunteer my time and I try to develop players as best as I can. I have a lot of experience playing, so it's kind of just transformed into coaching. But I have no idea the amount of kids.
That's what we do as parents, right?
Yeah.
Do you have a son or a daughter that plays?
I have a son now in McNary who's a sophomore, and then my daughter who plays now. So since he's at McNary, I've kind of backed off coaching him, but now my daughter, so I coach her. She's in 5th grade, so.
Fantastic. Councilor Reed.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Miguel gave me these numbers today, and they're numbers. So I was wondering if you could give me a bit more context for those. And we all have copies of them up here. So if you could just give us some more context for them.
I was looking over this as well. So just from my experience from coaching and charging families, usually there's a team fee for competitive soccer. So whatever season you choose, like a fall season is $800. So we split that up, and depending on how many players you have on your roster, we split that up individually, each player. So it averages about $150. That's pretty much what we've seen, charging $150 for a season to play soccer.
Who is that, like the $800? Does that go to the league?
That goes to the league, yes, to register them, and then player cards, all the registration fees are that's like a base cost. So the total of that adding up for a year of soccer is $2,500 roughly is what you're charging per season.
Okay, so charging the teams per season?
Yeah, so one fall season would be $800, a winter season would be $900, OYSA spring season would be $700. So if you were to add those all up, each team would be paying close to $2,000.
Okay, and then that's broken down by kid in the next column.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and then the turf costs, that's based on what you're paying the school district, the $38 per hour and the 2 hour.
So my experience again with that, this last spring season for 2 months of renting out McNary, I think we had it for 2 practices a week. We paid almost $900. So it was right under $1,000 just to practice for 2 months. And so it's expensive, but I mean, we need to do it because there's no other options. And like I said, training in gyms, we do what we can, but it's hard to prepare for a competitive soccer game inside of a gym with chairs everywhere. And yeah, just the space alone, trying to, get the kids prepared for game-like situations in a tight area like that. It's tough. So that was my experience with cost, was about $900. I mean, it can vary. I know it can be cheaper if you split the field and share it with a team. Then we don't always need to use an entire field. We can share half the field with another team. So that's always an option that can keep costs down for practices. But yeah, turf is expensive. And other options are Salem indoor soccer, which is close to $100 an hour. There's a field off of Corden, Hope Church. They have a small turf field out there, but it's always booked out. I mean, to get a booking there is pretty tough, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the indoor soccer, because I remember my son playing there, years ago when he was doing soccer. So in the winter, trying to find those spaces indoors that you didn't turn into a mud ball were hard to come by. So I was glad to hear they're still around. So in your experience with these kids, have you been able to do fundraising for scholarships for kids who can't afford to pay those fees? So you can.
Yeah, I believe Mid-Valley has payment options. If you can't pay it all up front, they allow you to do some type of payment option to make it easier for you if you can't have all the money up front. Scholarship-wise, I'm not too familiar with that type of stuff. I know teams have done fundraising, can drives, donations, things like that to make some money to keep costs down. So there are options, but Mid-Valley Soccer's done a great job of, I don't think they've ran into that problem too much just because it's been affordable. And now that the competitive option is there and we're still able to keep it affordable for families is what is really huge. And that's what the 4-H program brought to this area, was low-cost soccer that was competitive, and they were competing with the best. So it was a great program.
Well, and if the teams come here, then the families don't have to travel, which also keeps your costs down tremendously.
Yeah.
I think I said in an earlier meeting that thanks to my kids' sports, I know every single rest stop between here and the Canadian border by name.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. Other questions for Mr. Branch? Council President Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What about corporate sponsors? What if I just decided I wanted to sponsor a team and put my logo on the back? Do they do that? Is that an option?
That is options. I believe certain teams can become a nonprofit type of thing to where they can receive money to keep costs down. Mid-Valley Soccer, I think, as a club, I'm not sure if I know they take donations, but for individual teams, I'm unsure, or don't know if a lot of teams do that.
Yeah, I remember, I think it was baseball. Was
Oh,
it Little League? Didn't we used to do that where the teams, you could sponsor them?
Yeah. And soccer.
I have done that through 4-H. We've had companies sponsor us, which helped keep our costs down for tournaments throughout the summer and things like that we wanted to participate in.
Yeah, we did, and we also had a Keizer Little League, by the way, had a scholarship program that would pay the whole kid. You know what the name of it was? Larry Smith.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he would call me and ask me, it was all incognito, I promised I wouldn't say it until after he was gone. But he would always promise me, and he'd pay for 4 or 5 people. I mean,
Oh, wow.
It was incredible. But people step up here in Keizer, like Commissioner said. So I think, and I know, when you said mud ball, I had this flashback of you were little, you came up with a bunch of mud on your thing. And I go, what do you do with soccer?
Yeah.
What? So that kind of came back.
Yeah.
And thanks for taking your time here.
Yes,
to be
thank
here.
you.
Thanks
I
for
mean,
that.
I hope I was any help. I mean, all that information, just as a coach, sorry I don't know more about the numbers and
that's good.
stuff that maybe is important, but I do care about this community and the sports community, growing up doing it, and then also now seeing my kids do it, and just seeing the talent here and everybody get around it. It's something special, so I'd like to be part of it.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate you being here
Yeah,
and just
no
telling
problem.
the story, from a parent and coach point of view. That's really, really helpful because it's about the kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so
thank
much.
You. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
So stick around for more conversation. School district. Oh, they are. Okay, cool. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here tonight. So if you could just give your name so Debbie will get it right in the record and then talk to us.
Hi, Robert Silva, Chief Operations Officer of Salem Keizer Public Schools.
Scott Gregg, Athletic Director of McNary.
Thank you so much.
Madam Mayor, councilors, thanks for the opportunity to speak to you. As I would just mirror what Commissioner or Board Member Bethel said, in that we're seeing record participation in youth sports this year. I think COVID being locking everybody down has gotten everybody out, and we're really struggling with providing enough field access for all of the youth sports clubs that are out there. The item she mentioned with the Little League going on in Salem, I'm quite familiar with. And I can tell you it's a challenge. We want to make our fields accessible for the communities, but the reality is right now there's more demand than we have supply. So I'm particularly interested in seeing what this project looks like in the future, and Scott can speak to the Keizer specific uses of McNary.
Sure. Thanks for inviting me to be here. I'm here as an advocate for this. If you're driving around McNary, you'll see now that we have lights that I can turn on and off with my phone. Awesome. We have lights on that typically are on until 11 o'clock at night. And most of those uses are from outside user groups, lacrosse, women's football, baseball programs, not only our own, but and soccer programs as well. That field is utilized 365 days a year with multiple people that don't get enough time on there, our school included. I've tried to do a good job of frustrating everyone by distributing opportunities on that field. But Keizer, the city of Keizer, and your residents, youth, would benefit greatly from this access to more sports fields that McNary just doesn't have. Even for our own, our sub-varsity soccer teams are seeking use of Whitaker's fields for our sub-varsity games and practices, because the access on our own campus isn't enough to utilize all of our spaces. And then I've done Salem Keizer through facility rentals coordinates with outside user groups with a request to use McNary's fields. Once they've been granted access and have put in their insurance and done all those things, and paid a rental fee through Salem Keizer, then Salem Keizer comes to me and says, okay, when can they have access? And so there's this back and forth with the district and the outside user groups on how do we divvy up this so that that our space is utilized. It's a puzzle that we are working on constantly to do with. What I have done, it's been McNary's philosophy, not just my philosophy, that anything that is tied to McNary feeder programs, they're going to get preferential treatment after our OSA sanctioned sports are there, including lacrosse. And then after that, if we've got time, then women's football and some other programs that want to access it we're able to work with them. But it is a challenge for us. I could see we've started our softball season. We've moved 2 of our games that we were scheduled to host to go travel to a Beaverton school and to a Medford school because they have turf and we had rain here. And so we either canceled the game or paid our transportation to get to these games. And so we've moved those because we currently don't have turf on our softball fields. and which there isn't a mound in softball. And if you put backstops in the corners of each of those fields, you could very easily play softball there. I've seen communities, my kids grew up in Montana, and we drove 3 hours every weekend to go to Spokane because their facilities, everything they have access as far as indoor and outdoor facilities is top notch. I could see a community of Keizer really benefiting from leveraging the space that you have to benefit not only our kids and our community and not traveling 3 hours to Spokane, or it's much further than that to get to Spokane, but Bend is a pretty good community for that, and Southern Oregon has some good spaces, but in the Valley, it's pretty limited for all sports. There's some great, I grew, when I took the job at McNary, I was living on Tate, which is right, and so I heard every concert that was happening there. It was great. I don't see that, I don't mind that anyway, but it's not, I wouldn't, have we stayed there, that wouldn't have been a concern. I now live within eye shot, not earshot of the CFC, and the lights are on well past midnight over there, and they're running soccer constantly over there for multiple users. Again, that's a unique situation because there isn't a lot of residents around there that I think would be impacted as much as Keizer would. But again, if we get more concerned neighbors from the sound of our speakers playing than we do from the lights that are on, has been my experience at McNary.
I can usually hear the band playing and the loudspeakers at my house. I live about half a mile away from McNary, and apparently it's the right direction that I can hear the halftime show.
We actually aimed them towards you.
Thank you, I appreciate it. All I have to do is sit in my backyard and I can hear the halftime show, which is awesome when I can't get down there for the game. But that's actually, it's one of the neat sounds of the fall when football season.
I
It's
agree.
just, it's thrilling. We've talked a great deal in this community about not having enough for our kids to do. And they're always talking about, I need stuff to do, and this would provide facilities. So my question to you is, speaking to your other athletic directors, are they having the same problem since we have turf fields at all our high schools? Are they also getting maxed out with use?
Oh, yeah. Every space, the women's football program, they're practicing at Shamawa right now because that's the only place that they can find space to. There was a reciprocal agreement with the city of Salem and Salem Keizer, which is changed now. I don't know what it is exactly now, but it's more challenging for us to use tennis courts or Bush Park or things like that, where there was in the past a reciprocal agreement. And so it's even more of a challenge for us in spaces available. I'm not the one that's writing the check for the district. Not that there's a check coming, but I think that I could see McNary benefiting from an additional space for practices and things happening there too. We would benefit from it as well as many of the other groups, I think.
Okay, thank you. So I'm gonna go this way. Councilor Reed, you had a question? And then Councilor Herrera, do you have one? No. Okay, all right, Councilor Reed.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to draw on your experience in managing these fields in terms of the access, keeping them locked, keeping them safe as far as damage and vandalism and so forth. And what are some things that you would advise us to do in terms of if we indeed undertook this endeavor?
Yeah, I think your experience with the skate park is very similar to what you would experience at. I have found more vandalism and graffiti when we've locked facilities and restricted access than when we have things going on there. It's a lot less of the issues that are involved. Obviously, you can't have access in the middle of the night, but that's been, you've got to have, there's going to be equipment with soccer and football and other things, lacrosse and goals and things like that you're going to have to find a way to secure those. But I don't, I've always had the philosophy of trying to leave things open for, communities to walk our track and things like that, our tennis courts to be open on the weekends, because they're all, they all can be, they can help police the area too. And so I've encouraged them, when they wanted access, I said, yeah, just help me out by making sure that things are taken care of. And our community has done a great job in that.
And that's been a real concern for a lot of us because of, Keizer Rapids being, at the end of Chamawa and not quite as visible. But when we have a lot of people down there, it tends to have less problems than in the winter months when it's dark and closes early, and then people have more time to do untoward things.
Yeah, well, Tate's got a great neighborhood watch. You see the whole thing happening over there, so I'm sure they would be helpful as well.
Good to know. I'm looking at a couple people from the West Keizer neighborhood. That'd be a great conversation to have. Additional questions. That was a great question on Operation Amazing. So you already have a great deal of experience within the Salem Keizer schools on maintaining these fields, what it looks like when they're heavily loved, and what your maintenance and replacement schedule would be. So that would be helpful information for us and for our staff to know and glean from your experience rather than reinvent the wheel. We'd much rather learn from your wheel.
Sure, yeah. There isn't the regular mowing and fertilizing and weed control and things like that, but turf does have to be maintained. There's cleaning, there's the surface, the rubber particles, and I'm not speaking as expert, just as experience there, where we have at least annually, probably twice a year, where we have brushes that come in, level out the surface. There's seams that come open, and so those have got to be repaired on occasion. And I think it's about a 10-year lifespan of our turf fields. So you're looking at a replacement of about every 10 years. There's a company that can come out that will test kind of the lifespan of where your turf is at. Around our district, it's been about every 10 years where we've had to replace those. West Salem was the first one that was replaced. And so anyway, it's not lay the turf and walk away. There's a regular maintenance that needs to happen so that it does last longer.
So do you contract for that, or do you provide that in-house? Do you know?
It's my understanding that we in the past we've done that, but now most of that we're able to do. We've got the equipment now to brush the fields, to pick up any of the stuff, and so most of that is done in-house. I don't believe that in the testing of the lifespan, I think that's something that's contracted out. But it's but again, seams that come apart and things like that have to be done, I believe are all done in-house.
Okay, but it probably didn't start off that way, but it has evolved?
Yeah, I don't believe so. This is my 6th year in the district. Can't believe it's been that long, but so some of these things have evolved even prior to me taking the position.
And we could put you in contact with whoever. We could put you in contact with our ground supervisor that manages all the fields.
That'd be great information and experience to glean from, absolutely. Mr. Lawyer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Question for you folks. Are your fields open for a team to just show up and practice, or is it reserve only? Soccer team, football team, lacrosse team?
The signs on there is that if you want access to the fields, please call facility rentals and schedule out.
Okay.
I say that, and if there's not an organized thing happening out there, you'll have, pick up football games on Thanksgiving Day and things like that. Again, I have never been one to run folks off. If they're enjoying it and they're using it appropriately. I think it's a benefit to our community to be able to do that. But especially this spring, it's really difficult to find a time where we don't have some outside user group or McNary itself using those fields.
Right.
Great, thank you. Great question. And as you were talking about, if you keep it open, you have eyes on, and you have activity, and people who want to do things that we would find undesirable, have to go find a different.
Yeah, I found that users want to continue to use the fields, and so they are your best managers of those fields to say, hey, we'd love for you to be able to continue here, but we're gonna have to restrict this much more than we currently are if we're not able to control some of these things. And things get cleaned up really fast, and because it's a hot commodity, people want access to it, and so it's really helped partnering with those groups.
Excellent. Councilor Duran.
Is there a website or something that shows who has time on the field? How do people know if it's scheduled or not?
I don't believe there's a website. I mean, our Salem Keizer, we have a scheduler that's out there, but even that we verify with. I'll speak for McNary, that they've got our calendar, but they still call us and hey, Valley Youth Soccer wants to use that on these dates, and I'll say yep, nope, and we've, but there isn't a website for that.
So you can't look up to see if it's booked. You have to call.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, other questions? Looking, all right. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We really appreciate it, and look forward to more conversations. Oh, we have one more. We have no, by the way.
I'm so sorry. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Actually, my husband is texting me and blowing me up. And he just said that he is spot on, but he said, ask about injuries since turf for high school sports versus being on the ground. Is it better for kids to be playing on turf? Is it less injuries and things like that?
I don't know. But I do know that in Oregon, between the months of October until, well, it's snowing today, so
Minor detail, yeah.
our grass fields do not recover. And so the goal, where our goals sit for our JV practice field, that we had to bring in sod to repair those spots. And there's undulations and things that happen in that. And so the surface is safe, but it's not as true as a turf field, I don't think. And so, I've had experience on the old stuff, and I definitely couldn't say that. But the new stuff is, I think it's really it's a true consistent surface that is. I can't attest to whether it's safer or not, but my personal opinion, I think it is safer.
Just based, and that makes sense, just based on consistency of the ground and not having divots and things like that you twist your ankle in.
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. It looks like we have one more, actually two.
Real quick, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, Councilor Herrera, and I'll let Councilor Kohler back clean up.
Okay, Scott, when you played football, did you play in grass and turf or just turf?
All surfaces. I played on.
I was gonna ask you to compare them.
Well, yeah. I mean, I played on the old turf. I played on the new turf. I played on grass. I played on all of those.
So, did you have any preference as far as injuries? Did you have any? Is there any difference? Or?
No. No, not for me. I'm too slow to matter.
Did you ever hear what Alex Karras' answer was to that? Okay, I'll tell you later.
Okay.
No, they asked him what was the difference. There was new thing. Turf
Yeah.
was new, and they asked him what was the difference between grass and turf, and he said, "I don't know. I never smoked turf."
Right.
Yeah. So sorry.
And another way we're going to help our kids do better. Councilor Kohler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just quickly, do you require liability insurance or anything like that for any of the groups that use the fields?
Yeah,
And what is that?
Yeah. Well, Robert, you might be able to speak better to that. I don't know. I do know that when they work through facilities request, they do have to show proof of insurance, liability insurance. And they're vetted, that system vets the organization as well. I believe, background checks for those that are working with kids and stuff like that. But we're not, is that the question you're asking? We haven't, when it comes to me, facility rentals have worked through all of that already. And I'm just deciding, making sure that we've got room to place them there.
I understood that for a group to schedule an ongoing project or ongoing event there, that they have to provide a certain level of liability insurance and some other insurance that helps cover the fields or something. I'm not sure what all of it is, but I understood that there was something.
Yeah, and you know, each group, Tualatin Valley Youth Football, their organization is the one that doesn't underwrite, but they as an organization have that liability insurance that they provide. I'm pretty sure that the other organizations, youth soccer, also the ones that have those insurance in place. But yeah, so all that is done through the facility rentals process. People that come and access it for Thanksgiving touch football or whatever they're doing out there, obviously they're entering at their own risk.
And I believe that information is on our website as far as what insurance is required.
The Salem Keizer School District website?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it wouldn't be that much different from what we require for the city to reserve, right?
I wouldn't think it would vary dramatically, no. It'd be very consistent.
We already have those in place, like for our community center and for reserving places in our facilities as well. All right, well, again, thank you so much for joining us. We hope this is the first and certainly won't be the last conversation we'll be having with you about this project.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you so much. And I understand before we go to public comment, we do have one other organization listed or here, and that is for football. Is that correct? Come on down. Pardon? Football. Hello. Thank you so much for coming tonight. If you could introduce yourselves and tell us about the Capitol Pioneers.
My name is Rebecca Finneran. I am a Keizer resident, and I am the president of the Salem Women's Football Association. We run the team, the Capitol Pioneers, which is a semi-pro women's tackle football team. We are nationwide. We're 62 teams nationwide, and our goal as the nonprofit, the Salem Women's Football Association, is to inspire and empower female athletes of all ages. This August, we are really excited because we're going to start kicking off flag for adult women. So we have our tackle program, which did extremely well last season. In our first season, we went 6-0 in our regular season. We went to Arizona and lost in the playoffs, but it was 108 degrees when you bring 22 Oregonians. We weren't really ready. So we're ready this season, and we played our first game at McNary High School this past Saturday. Thank you very much for the field usage. It was truthfully, like we're talking about the school district before, it's really, really difficult to get usage through the school district. One of 62 teams. I was the only team out of 62 teams that had to buy additional insurance because the league provided insurance did not meet the requirements. And we spent a pretty penny for it, for our 3 home games to be able to have them at McNary. And we appreciate them. They were helping us schedule everything and process the insurance. We got the approval exactly 2 weeks before our first game. So we had an incoming team not knowing where we were going to play up until 2 weeks, and we knew that we were going to figure it out. We asked all of our resources for insurance, everything we could do, and we finally got it. So it is definitely a struggle to find field usage and things like that, especially when we are trying to empower female athletes. We are stay-at-home moms, we're nurses, we're business owners, we're city workers, and we all take our kids to high school and watch them play, and we have little ones that we bring up, and we just want to be doing everything with them and showing them that you don't, like physical activity, it should be a form or should be for your entire life. So this project is really exciting. For us, we're hoping that we really want to become a staple in Keizer, especially now expanding the flag program. I think we will still have to use a stadium facility for our games, but this definitely is great for practices, expanding the flag programs that we have, and we have kids as well that are playing youth soccer and different sports and expanding and giving Keizer more opportunity.
This is something that I didn't know about, so this is fabulous. I'm so glad you're here, and Keizer resident, of course. That's how Keizer rolls. How long has the team been here? Just a little bit of background, and do you have a website where we can, those of us who were ill-informed, can learn more?
Yes, we started in 2019. COVID took our first season. Just like everybody else, right? So we had our first season in 2021. The league has been around for over 20 plus years. Portland has had a team for, last season was their 20th season. And we would like to do better in expanding it to start younger, not necessarily putting girls in tackle young, talking about just knowledge. My brothers played college football. I watched them go all the way through. I didn't start playing football until I was 33, and I didn't know that I didn't understand the game until you get out there, until somebody explains to you the differences. And I find football being extremely empowering for women right now in my age. I can only imagine what you could do when you have younger girls, where football is the ultimate team sport, and it doesn't matter what size you are, there is a position and there is a place for you. And I would love to bring that to the youth and to women who have never had the opportunity, like myself, up until recently.
That was very exciting. So what you're looking for is possibilities for a home field and possible, you'd be interested in having a conversation about partnerships.
Yes.
Fantastic. I'm going to go to Councilor Starr.
I just want to recognize Capital Pioneers. They are huge supporters of our community and our nonprofits in the community. And in the middle of the pandemic, when we were asking, with CASA, when we were asking for support, they showed up. So thank you. Thank you.
Councilor Kohler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, thank you for coming. I'm glad that you accepted the invitation to come. We may need to talk about changing the name of the team to the Keizer Pioneers, but we'll get to that.
We can talk about that.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. And if you would.
I came up here just simply because I know that she wouldn't toot the horn that needed to be tooted about this team. I've been around football my entire life. I started playing in the 4th grade. I played until I was in my 30s. I played in the public safety charity league. I coached my kid from 1st grade to high school and then let the high school coaches coach him from there, and he now plays football at George Fox. I was asked to come out and take pictures of this team by a parent of a girl that I had coached at Judson Middle School, and I had no clue either. I did not know what I was going to come watch, and I was, quite frankly, shocked at how it was real football and the passion the women's have for it. As I got to know the team, I found out more about women's football that was more impressive to me. I was just talking to somebody, and they asked me, what do you think is the biggest difference between women's football and men's football? And I wrapped my head around that answer, bounced around a little bit, and thought, the best thing I can say about explaining what women's football is like is when you coach men, whether it be at youth, high school, or even adult levels, every team has 30 to 50 people, and 4 or 5 of them are those guys that the coaches will say, that's a coachable kid. He's fantastic. But there's 4. This team is made up of all players that are like that. They are so passionate about it. They want to learn. They want to get better. We have a player that's intending to apply to be on a select team to play for Team United or the U.S. national team. no way I knew that would even exist. These women that the Salem Women's Football Association are helping can not only start as a young kid when they start their flag programs for youth, but they can play flag as an adult. They can transition to the tackle team, and then they can go join and compete internationally in tackle football. That's an amazing opportunity that unfortunately most people don't know exists, and that's what we hope to change. We hope to bring the culture of women's tackle football to Keizer and the surrounding area, and give these women the opportunity that predominantly have been a men's opportunity for decades, well, more than a decade. We want to change that. The other side note to this is there's more to football for women than you would think. Very rarely do I hear stories in the men's world of teams rallying around each other when there's a domestic violence issue. Very rarely do I hear adult people saying, when I left the military service, there was this void that I didn't even know that existed. It just, something was missing. And then I found football. We have 3 or 4 players that are experiencing exactly that. They left the military and there's this void that they didn't know what was missing. And they found it. It's the team. It's being a part of something special. And I hope that there's a way to help the Pioneers achieve that goal for more women. And this new facility would be awesome. Turf fields are very tough to find, and having a turf field with football lines to be able to build this program and bring it to Keizer, the surrounding area, and put a whole bunch of people in the stands watching football games of women playing tackle football would be awesome. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Did you get his name? Would you say your name so that we can
I'm
get
sorry,
it?
Steve Polanski.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Well, make sure that Debbie has your contact information. So as we continue these conversations with what the future is for this project, that you can be invited to the table. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Fantastic. What I'd like to do now, we've heard a lot of great information. I would like to hear from the people. There's 4 people signed up, and you can imagine it's the back row that's been, we really can't let you guys sit next to each other next time, just seriously. I'm looking at you. Bring them up to talk to us about their perspectives on this project and then discuss next steps. How does that sound to all y'all? All right, Jim Taylor, come on down, the price is right. And friend. Hi, Kim. Just the usual routine.
Jim Taylor, Keizer, Oregon.
Kim Steen, Keizer resident.
Well, first of all, I wanted to speak to the soccer fields, and then I'm going to throw a curveball at you.
Wrong sport.
I totally support this whole concept. And I had a daughter who started playing soccer when she was 5, played all the way through until she played 4 years varsity at McNary. So I've been a soccer supporter. The other thing one of the things was mentioned that there were other places they were looking at that besides Keizer Rapids. When we built the restrooms at Keizer Rapids, it was built big enough to handle everything that was on that was planned to be there. So it's there, and you would have to come up with something else if you build it somewhere else. So just thought I'd add that. What I really wanted to talk about was an indoor facility at Keizer Rapids for basketball, volleyball, emergency management in case we had a big event. Could be used for seniors during the day for exercise, for classes, things like that. I can tell you that for basketball, there's not enough places to play. With softball and even with football, you can find a place, you can find a field. You can do, a few years ago when I was coaching Little League softball, we'd go out and I just mow a place down in a field, one of the schools, and we could practice. Well, you can't do that with basketball. And I know a couple of years ago you had fourth graders and fifth graders that were practicing 9 o'clock at night because there was just no gym availability. When I coached basketball back in the 90s and the early 2000s, I was fortunate enough that we could go out to 2 years when we were doing AAU, we'd practice once a week at the deaf school, which wasn't the best place because it's a hard floor, but we could at least practice and occasionally go out to Corbin because Terry Williams was the coach out there then, and Terry and I had coached together for years. So an indoor facility would be a huge thing, and you could do tournaments. Give you an example of tournaments. The city of Sisters does basketball, one big tournament and then some smaller tournaments, and they run their entire sports programs from what they make off those tournaments. And it would bring a lot of people here. You could build a facility, and I think the cost was $800,000, but that was like 4 or 5 years ago. Mayor, do you remember when we went out to Bob's?
Mm-hmm. I wasn't on that field trip. I heard about it.
Okay, Bob Zielinski built a building for his hop dryer, and it was big enough to put 4 basketball courts, maybe it was 5, but comfortably 4 basketball courts in there. And he built that for $750,000. Now you'd have to put a little bit more money in because you'd have to put some sort of a floor in and some other things, but it's doable. And, you know, a lot of people say, well, you can't do that here. You can't do that there. I always told every girl that played either basketball or softball for you, can't sits on the bench. You know, don't say can't. Perfect example is when we built this building, we wanted to do the community center, and there were people that said, well, you can't do that. We don't have, yes, you can. You just have to figure out ways to do it. And aren't we glad now we have that community center? So these things, you know, will serve a lot of people and a lot of kids, and I think they're necessary. We're a big city. It's time to grow up. So I'll turn it over to Kim. She's a neighbor of Keizer Rapids, and so she has a lot of information that she'd want to share. So you got to come up with something now.
Oh, okay. So Kim Steen again. I live on Tate, so I back up to the park. I absolutely love Keizer Rapids Park. I was concerned, when I first moved in there, it was a 75-foot buffer, I will mention that. It quickly turned into a 25-foot, or did I say percent, a 75-foot buffer, now it's 25, and the park closes at dusk. So I was concerned hearing about the fields coming in. I mean, I know it's part of the master plan. My concern is lighting and the park, you know, staying open past dusk. And I like what I've heard here tonight. It's kind of allayed a lot of my fears. So I would hope that there would be some sort of compromise as far as, you know, timing of that. You know, there are children that live on Tate. You know, if it's open till, somebody mentioned the fields at McNary being used till 11 o'clock at night. I really wouldn't like that. Don't think that would be fair to the neighbors, but I guess that's all I have to say. But, I mean, it seems like a pretty exciting thing, so.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate you coming and listening to all the good information tonight. Thank you. Next up, we have Lori Christopher.
Hi. Lori Christopher, Keizer resident, and thank you so much for an opportunity to talk. I made notes. So tonight we're not talking about taxation without a vote, and we're not talking about history. So tonight we get to be friends. And I want to tell you I'm 100% in full support of this project. Now, I didn't know anything about this project other than we had sports fields scheduled in the master plan to be in Keizer Rapids Park. But a couple of counselors sought me out and said, what do you think about turf fields? I really didn't know. So I started asking questions and doing my homework. And I'll tell you, it's an easy choice when you consider that it's the difference between 5 months and 12 months. That's the difference. I mean, we live in a rainy place. Good heavens, we had snow last night. And so you can't, you just can't, the reason that we have so few fields is because we're in a rainy area and we don't have enough of these turf fields. They're expensive and they have to be replaced every 10 years. But if you want to talk about a legacy project, if you want your time spent on city council to really amount to something that's going to last this community for decades to come, this is that type of project. And trust me, I know what I'm talking about. During my tenure, our city council finished Keizer Station. During my tenure, Keizer City Council built this building with urban renewal funds, 100%. We didn't go 1 penny into debt. Here we are. It was dedicated in 2009. And I'm sitting in the back of the room and looking around and thinking, this is still a great looking building. It was a fight to get this built. I remember our former city manager, Chris Epley, said, we're not going to be able to put the community center in there. And I said, community center or no deal. I'm not going to support it if we don't have a community center. And we're going to do it with urban renewal funds. He said, I want a unanimous vote, and you'll never get that. You're sitting in the building as a result of a unanimous vote. Not a penny was bonded. We paid cash for this building. Keizer Rapids Park. We all laughed at Richard Walsh, who's going to bat cleanup tonight. We all said, oh, for God's sake, shut him up. Give him that park. It'll never happen. Well, how'd that turn out? We now have Walsh Way. We now have the boat landing. It's a deep water boat landing. We now have summer concerts in that park. This is another one of those ideas. You're all transient. You're not going to be here forever. I wasn't, and you won't be either. So make your mark. And this is in the master plan. These are fields that are going to be multi-use. They're not just soccer fields, albeit that's probably going to be a lot of what they'll be used for, but they will be used in a multitude of applications. Keizer needs to keep this project in-house. You need to control it. That means you need to establish a task force. I agree with Commissioner Bethel, bless her heart. Get that task force going tomorrow and you have time to figure this out. You can back into it and figure out what your fees and your scheduling are going to be, because you're going to know what the maintenance costs, thanks to McNary. They will be on that task force with you. Get them on that task force and learn from their experience. The mayor is absolutely right. Learn from their experience and figure out what that program looks like, but keep it in Keizer. I'm sorry, Bill, but it has to stay in Keizer, and you're transient as well. So, use.
Happy birthday, Bill.
Happy birthday, Bill. 60 months, baby. That's a car loan. Okay. Okay, you got me excited now. Establish a task force, fees, schedules, maintenance, replacement. Use our old SDCs. Talked with Tim, we got $1 million too. We cannot use those dang SDCs because they can only be used in a community park and they can only be used for 13% of the project. You can use $550,000 of those old SDCs that are standing there that we can't use for this project. Now, ideally, that frees up $550,000. That is a perfect way to spend the money to build a pole barn. That is essentially what you're talking about, is a pole barn. It is an aluminum building with a cement floor. Let's talk about what could happen in that building. It's already in the master plan. You can have basketball going on, you can have volleyball going on. It's basically a dry building. It's not heated, it's not air conditioned, it's a dry building. Again, we live in a rainy place, so our kids do not have areas to be able to play at least those two sports. Crap, we could throw pickleball in, and then we could get Counselor Kohler out there. So you want to have those nice dry spaces for kids. So what else could we use that building for? Our mayor's very concerned with emergency management, and rightly so. If we've learned anything in the last 2 years, we've learned how woefully unprepared we are for situations we cannot anticipate. Well, let's think about that. Let's do some legacy building. Let's build a building that our children can play in, and when an emergency happens, we can use that for the multitude of animals that can't go into shelters. Their owners will not leave them. We could house those animals in that building. We could house people in that building if the need be, depending on how bad the emergency was. It can be used for a number of things. It could be an EOC, Emergency Operations Center, if we're unable to use this building. We could partner with Marion County on that as well. Again, the cost, when are we going to have a gift like you have been given? When are we going to have that gift? You've been given $8.8 million to change this community. This is one of those projects, and that building is complementary to those fields. Let me see if I hit you with everything. Yes, I did. Thank you so much for the work that you do. Thank you for taking crap from me and the other people that come before you asking for your attention and asking for your funding of different special projects. You know I understand where you sit. It's a much better seat over here, but thank you for your time. Questions? Swell.
We're good. All right, thank you, Lori. Madam Mayor. Mr. Walsh, former counselor. Do you have the timer?
It hasn't been on all day. Council, thank you very much for listening to me today, and Mayor. And my name is Richard Walsh. I'm a Keizer resident, and I want to make history tonight. Actually, Kim kind of beat me to it, but I'm going to try to make it official. You've always heard about NIMBYs, not in my backyard. I mean, I have this beautiful backyard right now that backs up to this area where this is going to go. And I have beautiful, quiet area. I have beautiful scenery, unobstructed view all the way to the river. I have little ducks. I have geese. We have heron. We have deer once in a while. I'm going to really, miss all of that. But I'm not going to be a NIMBY. I'm going to be a YIMBY, a yes in my backyard. I want that there because, and there's a lot of reasons that I think it's really important to be there. One of which is that was always intended to be, was to be for those fields. It was purchased for that. And a lot of people don't realize it, but we didn't just purchase it to be parkland, beautiful parkland. We purchased it with urban renewal proceed money. That particular parcel was proceed money. It was meant to do something. It was meant to do something for the business community as well. It was meant to not just sit there. And to have a tournament facility was one of the ideas that was a reason why it made sense that we could use the proceed monies for that. So we need to use that responsibly for the way that the money was dedicated, which is to create something that is a little bit of use to the region and to the business community, and to bring people here, and they're going to be staying in our tournaments, they'll be staying in our hotels, eating our foods in our restaurants, and so on. It'll be good for business too. So it's just with all the other things said, that wasn't said, and I thought that needed to be reminded. The other thing is, I will agree with the mayor that there is something to be said about looking long-term and the few things that you can do while you're on council. This building here and the police station, those are like two different pieces of the same puzzle, and the community center as well. And then, of course, Keizer Rapids, this piece of Keizer Rapids, the Buckles property, it was all done because of you take a chance and you do that. And you do it because it's for the best thing for the entire community long-term. The other thing is, oh my gosh, we're getting a match of $2 million. Do you know that's like $10 gazillion in Keizer money? I mean, this doesn't happen every day. You know, this is like unbelievable. And to pass that up would be just a travesty. And I think that's really amazing. The other thing is that it also addresses income inequality. You know, we have a lot of situations where the wealthy people, and all over the country, the wealthy people can go to their country clubs and their golf courses and everything else. But we need something that's available to the common person, the working class. Everybody can access it. And if we get soccer fields, it can be football fields, and for the women's football team, and just for everybody. You know, everything we can do that can create public facilities for everyone, for all citizens, and that is a tremendous assistance, and it combats income inequality, where we have the haves and the have-nots. Well, guess what? We have people that work, you know, 9-to-5 jobs and do a decent, and earn a decent living, and they don't have to have enough money to join a country club to enjoy the finest things in life. And we can give them the finest recreational facility that you can get anywhere. We can put this artificial field in there. So I think that's really fantastic. And then, I don't know why my phone keeps going out, but the other thing is the road. Somebody mentioned something about the road. That road was specifically improved as part of the Keizer Rapids project. We got money from the region because they knew we were building a regional park with regional facilities, and that's where the money came from. Again, let's be responsible to the vision and what we had in mind. We got sidewalks on both sides of that street. We got bike lanes on both sides of the street. They weren't there before. You want to put this somewhere else? Where else did you already spend millions of dollars to make it perfect for just this thing? And we do have park events where hundreds of people, Clint has some concerts, you know, like Johnny Limbo or some others, JK, you know, where there's hundreds, not just a couple hundred, but, you know, 300 or 400 people coming out at once, and the road handles it. It's designed for that. And we have, I'm going to get a new phone. Security, that was mentioned. We have the Keizer Police and the Keizer Fire Department on the same road, less than 2 miles away, and it's a straight shot, and it's a major arterial. They can get there in less than 5 minutes, and even faster if it's an emergency. That, you don't have that in most other areas where you could even possibly think about putting this thing. And the costs are affordable, both, and don't worry, I mean, yes, every 10 years you got to plan for that. But here's the thing, you're not replacing the entire facility. You're only replacing the carpet. You're not replacing the grandstands or the subsurface or the sand that's underneath it or all the labor that goes into mapping it out and the topography and so on. It's just the carpet. And so the price is far less. And I do want to mention, to Jim's point, is that what a wonderful combination it would be. And we've always envisioned this, and that's why it's there, is the indoor pole barn type facility is supposed to be matching with fields. And part of the reason is year-round use. So when you take your field down there, your team, you know you're going to practice. And if it's monsoon weather, well, then you know what? You can go inside and you can have your indoor soccer practice for a day. And if it's decent weather, you go outside, even if it would rain 5 minutes earlier because it's an artificial turf. So, I mean, it opens up all kinds of areas. Plus you have ag fests you could do in a building with a concrete floor. You could do basketball, but you can do so much more. And it can be an emergency shelter. And if you do have an emergency shelter for people, I'm not so sure about all the animals in there because we do have the fairgrounds, but if you did have a place for people, you could easily put the dogs right next door in the dog park. It's set up for it, and there's groundwater there if you wanted to drill a well. In fact, I have one. I'll share it. It's right there. So actually, you have it. It's yours. But anyway, so I think
remember who your landlord is.
So in any event, it's kind of the fruition of what we had in mind, 15 years ago. And we always thought, well, gosh, that'll happen. And the answer was always, well, only if manna falls from heaven. And Beth brought manna from heaven. And between the Recovery Act and the generosity of Marion County, you have an opportunity that you will never, ever have again. Please choose wisely.
Thank you, Richard. I was happy to be one of those people who voted, was part of that unanimous vote, because I am the crypt kicker. Thank you all, those are everybody who signed up, and I know we have a couple people from West Keizer. Did you want to say anything tonight, or are you here to listen? Just, I wanted to open the invitation for you. Okay.
No, the board hasn't really talked about it any further.
Okay, so you're going to be reporting back, and then there'll be opportunities to do presentations with and conversations with West Keizer, and that'd be a great opportunity to really saturate the neighborhood with information and to get input as well. It is coming up on 8 o'clock, which is about the time we want to conclude this evening. This has been extremely helpful and informational. We will discuss next steps, but what I'm hearing is the formation of either a work group or task force. We will talk with city staff on what that should look like, and then how we convene going forward to continue the conversation, because I didn't hear anybody tonight saying this is a really bad idea, we shouldn't, find that way forward. Councilor Starr.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to add, as a member of the Community Diversity Engagement Committee, that committee also listed as one of their priorities and input and things that they held important was more opportunities for youth to have places to go and things to do. And so I just wanted to bring that forward from the committee. I think that was in their first meeting that they discussed that, maybe their second meeting. I'm looking at Tim. So thank you.
Give me a head nod on that. And every single one of us who have raised kids in this community have heard that from our kids. Yep, every one of us, that we need things, constructive places for kids to go, for youth to go, for families to go, and to have great spaces that invite people to engage in activities and to do community together. Council President Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to make a special thank you to both the commissioners for coming down. I did actually get to sit with Danielle a couple weeks ago and talk about this, and I don't think I've ever looked at somebody and tried to find a reason to tell them, no, I would not take $2 million. So I just really appreciate y'all sticking with us as we go through the process and make sure that everyone has a chance to voice their thoughts, their concerns, their support. And for everybody who came down tonight, I did not know a thing about what a turf field was. My husband's been trying to tell us we should put turf in things. I'm like, just sounds expensive, no. And I understand a little bit better now, but thank you all for coming down and just speaking to this. I'm excited about it, I'm not gonna lie. I think that exactly what former Mayor Christopher said, this is a legacy opportunity, and it is to help the kids in the community. And I believe it was Mr. Branch's little girl that came and spoke, and I was sold right then. So you give her credit for getting my vote. Thank you.
She did a great job, and youth representation on whatever we assemble going forward, I think would be a fantastic opportunity. So we'll definitely have that conversation. Councilor Kohler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of questions. We have to let the county know that we are willing to do this. Is that right? Do we have a timeline on that somehow? Anybody know what that timeline is? You could share with us.
The sooner the better.
Sooner the better. Okay.
If you don't want the money, we reallocate it. There's a time frame on that, so we need to know.
And then part of that is, if we make a commitment and say, yes, we want to do that, is there another time limit to when we have to actually start it?
We have to have it obligated by 24, spent by 26. This is ARPA. So this is just like all of our other ARPA projects. They have to be obligated. That means you're contractually obligated by 24, and these funds have to be expended by 26. The timeline I heard tonight for being able to do a project like this, once we work out the details, could go a lot faster once we say, if we get to the point of go.
And then how big do we have to be all in with this, or do we have to say, yes, we have a commitment, and we don't have to have all the plans done, we just have to say, let's get this done. Let's get a task force together and move forward. We have a commitment to move forward, correct?
So that would be step one, but at some point we're going to there'll be a contractual agreement between the city and the county for this particular project, if that is the result of the task force.
Did you bring the contract with you? I got a pen.
We're getting a little bit over our skis, folks, before we get in trouble, and our city attorney, who warned me not to get into decision-making tonight, gets on my case about it. I'm going to go ahead and call it an evening. Thank you all very much. We will be definitely following up on this. It is 8 o'clock and we are adjourned.